Hello, in this video we are going to see the last building block of object-oriented programming called methods. In previous videos we saw classes, objects and attributes, and now we are going to see methods, which represents behavior of object-oriented programming. So what are methods? The functions that we use in a class is called methods. There are many different types of methods present. First is an instance method, second is a class method, third and the last is static method. In this video we are going to see the instance method in detail. Instance method used to access or modify the object state. If you use instance variable inside a method, such methods are called instance method. And here you can see in the screenshot we use these instance variables inside this instance method, and that is the definition of the instance method. So inside any instance method we can use self to access any data or method that resides in our class. We are unable to access it without a self parameter, so we need this self parameter to access all the instance variables and instance method. Now let's see the coding part where we can see how we can access instance variables in instance method. So this is our class student, and we have a constructor with name and age as the instance variables, and we initialize those variables over here. Then we have an instance method to access those instance variables. So we have a class called student, and then we have a constructor with two instant variables called name and age, and we initialize those variables inside this constructor. Then we have an instance method to access those instant variables, and you can see using self we can access those instant variables inside the instance method. And we created our first object, passing the two values name and age and calling our instance method. Then we again call the instance method with second object and again call the instance method. Here we can see the result of the two calling. The first Jessa, and the age is 14, and Kelly, age is 16. So you can see this is how we can access the instance variables in instance method. Next we are going to see how we can modify the instance variable inside instance method. But what is the meaning of modifying instance variable? So there are two concepts called modifying the object state and modifying class state. So if we can change the value of an instance variable, we refer that as a modifying object state, and if we can change the value of a class variable, we refer that as a modifying object state. So here we are modifying object state. Let's see the example. So we have a same class with one more instance variable called roll number. We initialize that inside a constructor. Then we have an instance method, and we have one more instance method to modify that instance variable. And here we can see using self we can easily update the value of an instance variable. Then create an object and call the show method. Then using same object call the update instance method to update the value. And here you can see the result. Previously the roll number was 20, but after we passed the roll number 35, it changed to 35. The name remains same, Emma, and age, previously it was 14, but after calling this instance method update, we are changing that to 15. So this is how we are modifying the instance variable, which also called modifying the object state. Next we are going to see how we can create an instance variable inside an instance method. Till the time we use constructor to create instance attributes, but instance attributes are not specific only to the init constructor. They can be defined elsewhere in the class. So here we can see previously we used to create our instance variable inside the constructor, but that is not a restriction. We can create an instance variable inside an instance method using self. Here we are going to see the same example, class student with constructor and instance variables. Then we have an instance method which is going to add our new instance variable. So you can see here using self we are adding a new attribute, that is an instance variable called mark. Here we can see we are creating an object, initialize all the values, then call the instance method which is going to add an instance variable which is a mark, and we are going to pass the value for mark is 75. And when we are going to display the object, we can see the updated or added instance variable which is mark and the value 75. So this is how we can create our instance variable inside the instance method and not in the constructor. Now in the next example we're going to see how we can add dynamically instance method to an object. We add method to a class body when defining a class, but Python is a dynamic programming language that allow us to add or delete instance method at runtime, and we are going to use method type functionality to do the task. Let's see the example. We are going to import types, which is going to add our instance method to an object. We define a class, initialize all the instance variable inside a constructor. Then we have an instance method to display those variables. Then we are going to create a new method and we are going to add this method to an object. We created an object S1 for this class student, initialize all the values of the instance variables. Then using this syntax we are going to add that instance method to an object. Type dot method type in the parenthesis welcome your method name and your object name dot your method name. Now let's display the instance variables. You can see Jesa and age 15, and now we can access our newly added method using the object s1.welcome, and you can see hello Jesa, welcome to the class 9. So this is how we dynamically add instance method to an object using types, and inside types using method type. And at last we are going to see how we can dynamically delete the instance method. So there are two ways using which we can delete the dynamic instance method. One is using del operator and one using delete attribute method. So let's see the first del operator. Here we are going to see the class with constructor to initialize values, instance method, and another instance method which we are going to delete using del operator. Create an object, initialize class, call instance method, and then call another instance method which we are going to delete. Then using del operator just type del, then your object name dot your method name, and it is going to delete that instance method. And when we are going to again call this method, we are getting an attribute error for that method. And here you can see the previous calling, we get name Emma, age 14, percentage is 64.5, but after deleting that instance method using del operator, and when we try to call that same method again, we get an attribute error because that particular instance method is deleted. And just like del operator, we can do the same by using delete attribute method. So everything remains same. We have a class, we have a constructor to initialize instance variables, and we have two instance method. One is show, another is percentage. We create an object, we initialize that object, then we call an instance method, and again we call the instance method percentage. Now let's see how we can delete the instance method using delete attribute. So just type DELATTR, delete attribute, in the parenthesis pass your object, comma, and in the single quote pass your name of the instance method. So this is the syntax of deleting the instance method using delete attribute method. Then again when we are going to call that deleted method instance method, we are going to see the attribute error again. To summarize, we just covered what is the methods. In that, the first instance method, the definition, then how to access the instance variable inside instance method, how to modify the instance variable inside instance method, create instance variable, inside a method, how to dynamically add instance method to an object, and at last, how to delete an instance method using del operator and delete attribute method. In the next video, we are going to see the class method in same great detail. Thank you.